Good evening. Welcome to Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for March 28, 2016. Can I have a motion to go to executive session for tenure review and the matters pertaining to employment history of particular individuals?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Push it again to come back.
Could I have a motion to go back into public session?
So moved.
I did. I pushed it.
And thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. Good evening.
I think your mic's on.
I know. Can you turn it up?
I don't think
Can you hear me?
I don't think he's.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting.
Hold on. Nobody can hear anything.
Nobody can hear me? Want to try again? Are we okay, Dennis?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Okay? All right, good evening. Welcome to the Yorktown Central School District Board of Education meeting for March 28th, 2016. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance given by the Mildred E. Strang Middle School students and remain standing for a moment of silence for our armed forces, those in our Yorktown community who have lost loved ones, especially the father of John Richardson. Nope, I'm good.
Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, Ralph, it looks like we have the middle school came to visit us today.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for being here this evening, and thank you most particularly for always waiting as I delayed the board coming out. It's my fault. I own it, but we're going to get started. That's terrible feedback.
I know.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. How are we doing?
Okay.
Oh, good. So, at any rate,
Yeah.
all right, we'll survive. So, Mrs. Horowitz, thank you very much for being here with your students, but I do believe that it's Ms. Shiano that's going to introduce the children and introduce the good news.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Napolitano, Dr. O'Connor, Mr. Cole, Mrs. Carbone, Mrs. Corrado, and the Board of Trustees. Tonight we are honored to present Mildred E. Strang's good news with you all. Before I begin, on behalf of Mrs. Horowitz, Mrs. Charlin, and myself, we would like to thank you for this opportunity to share just some of the good news that is happening at Mildred E. Strang Middle School. We'd also like to thank all the teachers for coming out tonight. Mr. DePasquale, Mrs. Ritchie, Mrs. Gibney, Mrs. Clinchy, our wonderful students and parents who are here tonight for supporting our school. Thank you. To ensure our school is working in collaboration with the board's goals written in Dr. Napolitano's action plan and keeping our students' needs and interests as a priority, we continue to reflect and refine our practices at Mildred E. Strang Middle School. This evening, we will share interdisciplinary project-based learning and STEAM activities in ELA and science, and also a multicultural exchange between social studies and Spanish. As stated in Dr. Napolitano's action plan, we are to develop STEAM opportunities for student learning, continue the review of the world language curriculum, and to build a rich digital teaching and learning environment, with particular emphasis on the full utilization of the Google Apps for Education platform. The students you're about to hear from collaborated and shared ideas over the presentation you're about to see. We also wanted to recognize a student who represented our town this year, Caitlin Tomney. Caitlin was one of the 24 chosen contestants on Gordon Ramsay's show, MasterChef Junior. The first project is an interdisciplinary project-based learning activity with social studies and Spanish. The essential question that drove this unit is, where do we still see multicultural exchange today in U.S. and Latin America? Research shows that interdisciplinary instruction fosters advances in cognitive ability and promotes significant learning. There are 6 elements of the educational process that lead to significant learning: foundational knowledge, application, integration, human dimension, caring, and learning how to learn. The students you're about to hear from researched, collaborated, and shared ideas and created this presentation, highlighting the takeaways from their exchange. Without further ado, here's Mr. DePasquale, Mrs. Ritchie, and their students to introduce their interdisciplinary multicultural exchange.
Very difficult.
Dennis, can everybody in the audience hear? We have new microphones, we just want to know.
I had it working great before.
Let's just take 2 minutes and try and make it work.
Yeah, let's see. Dr. Knapp, why don't you tell some jokes?
Oh, yes, that's it.
I had it working great. Oh, sorry. I don't
No, that's okay.
what's wrong. It's as good as I can get.
Okay, do you want to try, Mr. DePasquale?
Sure. Well, we came up with this. Anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Probably don't need that. But Mr. Ritchie and I came up with this project. We've been trying to think of a way to really bring foreign language and history together. They really do go together very well. And going through kind of, going back and forth, the idea of food, what better way to have the kids really participate in it and understand a cross-cultural exchange through that with language and history, using history of immigration and imperialism and kind of bringing those together with a cultural food exchange. So we thought that this would be a great way to do project-based learning. So we combine language, culture, history, all those things with research. That's a big component. And in talking even with some of the high school teachers, they always say that the kids need to be able to do more research. So this was a research-based project. They used technology in it. They used their Chromebooks. They were able to collaborate via Google Slides and Google Docs. So they worked in school and out of school virtually on those topics that they got, and were able to then put those together into a Google Slides presentation and present them in front of the class. So it had a whole bunch of different kind of aspects to it that we thought were beneficial to the kids. And we thought it was a way to have a little bit of fun and bring the curriculum alive in both projects, kind of in the middle of the winter doldrums of post-holiday season here at the middle school. So we thought it really was a great opportunity to do that. In doing that, we had studied, as I said, immigration and imperialism. And the conclusion of that was that at the end of the day, we see American culture in Latin America and South America, and we see Latin American culture here in the United States through various forms. And that was really what the kids were going to research, was cultural pluralism on both ends. And they did more than research food, but that's really the most fun part of it. The research of it, Ms. Ritchie's classes, they had a research pop culture, food, names of places that are American, that are Latin American here in the United States. So Colorado or Las Vegas or something like that, or food that you would see here or whatnot. My students had to do the opposite. They had to find American culture in Latin and South America, which was a little bit more challenging, especially on the names and whatnot. Probably the best result that we found is there is a river in South America named after Theodore Roosevelt, who after he's finished being president actually goes and explores it. And the kids found all these great pictures of him down in the jungles of South America exploring it. It's still to this day called Rio de Roosevelt. So they did all this, and then the last part of it was, and if they chose to, they could use their research to bring in a cultural dish. And our goal, we thought it would just be great if and we used Miss Gannon's room, she was gracious enough to let us invade for the day. And we thought it would be great if on a table you had American food right next, guacamole next to banana bread or whatever it is. And the kids could really see that come alive. And that was part of their research as well. And the results were really great. Here you can see some of the pictures from that day. We were overwhelmed, really, by the amount of stuff the kids brought in. I got a call about second period by our security here at Sal at the front desk saying, you have to send somebody down here. There's a lot of stuff coming in. I'd given them like a little cart. I was like, just pile it up in there. I'll come and bring it over. He's like, you're going to need like a flatbed to bring it over there. I was really overwhelmed by it, but the results were great. The kids worked really hard on this stuff. And when it all came together, we had these great presentations, and then we had our cultural food exchange. And I think that all the students involved really got a lot out of it. They learned, they were able to work with others, and then they had a little bit of fun. And I'd like to have some of our students come up and talk about what their experiences were. And our first student up is Alice from my group.
In order to represent the cultural exchange existing between America and Central and South American cultures, I brought in macaroni and cheese, which is a traditionally American food sold also in Latin America. This represented the American part of the trade, and when we completed the project, we were able to share the South and Central American food and the American food together in one project. I learned about the history between American and South American cultures, and we were able to experience both cultures during the lunch portion of the project.
Alright. So to represent the cultural exchange between America and Central America, I made guacamole. So I made guacamole for 3 reasons. So first of all, guacamole is awesome. I love it. It's related to the project, so that's always good. And my dad taught me how to make it. So guacamole is sold in both Central America and Northern America. During the food exchange part of this project, there were about 5 different guacamoles, which just shows how popular it is from both classes, so in Central America and America. And then, so this project helped me realize how much Latin America, Central America have affected our culture and vice versa.
During this cultural exchange project, in order to represent both cultures, I brought in both a traditionally Latino and a traditionally American dessert. I had researched many Spanish and Latin American recipes, and I had finally laid out the decision of bizcocho con canela a la leche, or a cinnamon bun cake with a drizzle of sweet condensed milk on top. This recipe was traditionally eaten as a breakfast cake, though it was used as a dessert in this case. It also is generally served with fruit salad or coffee. For the American portion of this project, I made banana bread, which is a traditional loaf cake made and eaten all throughout America. This also happens to be one of my absolute favorite things to eat and make. This project helped me to understand the different cultures and how they affected one another, while also giving us an opportunity to experience the cultural exchange firsthand.
Very good.
Estados. Ponce de León nombró a Florida. Florida significa tierra de flores. Montaña significa mountain. Texas significa tierra de amigos.
Idiomas. Hay letreros públicos en inglés y en español. Hay palabras escritas iguales, por ejemplo, vote, V-O-T-E, y vote, V-O-T-E.
En la película podemos celebrar el Día de los Muertos. En la película dicen mucho español en frases y las palabras.
Selena Gomez es una actriz mexicana-americana. En el foto, ella está celebra su príncipe.
So, el intercambio cultural was an exciting project-based learning project in which all the students were actively involved. And Senor Pascual and I hope to collaborate again next year and make this project bigger and better, maybe with French and Italian.
There you go.
The students have a taste of what we had on our intercambio cultural. So they're going to pass that around. It's just a little snack. It's plantain chips, plátanos.
Thank you. What? No guacamole.
Hi, thank you.
Maybe just lift it up toward.
Thank you, Mrs. Pascual, Mrs. Ritchie. Let's give another round of applause for the students. The last project we'd like to share is for the Skipping and Disciplinary Enrichment class, Make It Work. In this STEAM course, students focus and develop higher level thinking and problem solving skills by working on challenging tasks and improving their public speaking skills. On this note of presentation, Mrs. Gibney will introduce the course overview and you will view students' challenges throughout the course. Here's Mrs. Gibney.
Oh.
Good evening, President Napolitano, members of the school board. I'm Janine Gibby, and my colleague Kelly Ritchie and I want to thank you for this opportunity to present our new class called Make It Work. Tonight, you're going to see several different elements of this course presented by several elements. Being late in the floor, an action caused by laziness, the state of being tired, and not having a breakfast. We all know the struggle of walking into your kitchen and also it hits you. First of all, the cold tile on your hair. And the realization that you still have to make the most important meal of the day, breakfast. We introduced you to breakfast. The newest model too. Wow, you're hungry. Maybe you didn't eat at this point. I can tell. Here's how it works. A cuckoo clock strikes 7 in the morning and causes the bird to wake up and crow. Then the bird crows and causes the bell to ring. Next, the bell is attached to a boat, releasing an egg to come out of the chute. Then the egg falls into a hole which cracks the egg, which proceeds forward to the bird to cook the egg. Also, a pot of coffee is sitting on the burner above. Next to the stove. Then, the heat from the burner causes a puff on the boat, causing a pulley effect and lifting the toast out of the toaster. Then, a string connected to the toaster pulls another pulley to start the movement. Lastly, all the noise will then wake you up and you don't have to worry about making breakfast or walking into the kitchen because you're already in it. So, sharks, who's ready to invest in the excellent invention?
So those challenges that you've seen were throughout the course of the 10 weeks leading up to this culminating activity. The culminating STEAM activity was to build a 5-step contraption, then pitch their invention, Shark Tank style, to a panel of guests and judges. There was a few requirements. They had to have 5 separate elements that form a chain reaction that end up stapling papers together. They also need to use 4 principles, forces, or mechanisms for the machine. Finally, their team will enter the machine, show the machine on Shark Tank, and they will explain each element of the machine. They will use visual aids, diagrams, special effects to support their verbal explanations, demonstrate the machine, and then convince the investors that the machine is the next best thing. Here's the culminating activity. Do you want to just read that quickly?
I think it's okay.
So basically, you've seen the students, their team present this to the investors in a creative way, and this was their final project. So they went to their mistakes.
Ms. Gibney and Ms. Clinchy and their students a round of applause, please. Tonight we're proud.
Tonight we're proud to recognize a student who represented our town this year, Caitlin Toomey. Caitlin was one of the 24 contestants on Gordon Ramsay's MasterChef and the top 10 finalists. Chef Gordon Ramsay and his fellow judges chose 24 new-home cooks between the ages of 8 and 13 to enter the MasterChef's kitchen. They participated in everything from catering a party over 50 boys and girls, facing off in a cupcake frosting challenge, and a tag team challenge. Caitlin made it through a very rigorous application process by showing her unbelievable cooking skills. Not only did Caitlin prove her cooking skills, but her character also during the competition. Here's Caitlin, our Yorktown Master Chef, and one of her most famous recipes in her journey. Here's Caitlin.
So, as some of you may know, I recently was on the reality show MasterChef Junior, which finished airing very recently. So, I was invited here today to share my journey. So, I don't usually watch TV, but when I heard that MasterChef Junior was having tryouts, I had to convince my parents to let me go. So, I went to the open tryouts. And before I knew it, I got a phone call from Fox inviting me to LA to film a TV show. When I figured out I was in the top 24 contestants, it was crazy. And I got my apron and everything. I got to see the kitchen, which was amazing. Had all this awesome equipment, and it was just so cool. And the pantry was pretty much the best part because there was so much food and everything. Because I don't have that much food in my house. So the episode that I was pretty much most proud of was a mystery box challenge where I had to cook something with a different kind of cheese, whatever cheese I wanted to do. So I decided to make lemon ricotta cookies with a ricotta buttercream. So this is like a traditional cookie recipe with flour, sugar, butter, baking soda, all of that, and lemons and ricotta in it. So I baked that, and everything was crazy and hectic. The judges were coming over, talking to everyone. Everyone was trying to get all of the recipe done. And so I was working in this picture on my lemon glaze, which is a lemon glaze. So it has lemon juice and powdered sugar. So since I wanted to kind of make it inspired by macaroons, so I took the cookies and sandwiched a ricotta buttercream in between the two cookies. So this challenge, they only selected the top 3 contestants to have their dishes be tasted, and luckily I was chosen. So I got to go up to the front and have my dish tasted. Let's just say it was very stressful walking up there. I'm surprised I didn't trip or anything. But I gave my dish to the judges, and I was just waiting there to be judged, and it was, like I said, very stressful because I didn't know what they were going to say. Was it going to be good? Was it going to be bad? But luckily, when all of the judges tried my food, I got a pretty positive review, so that's a good thing. They said that they liked the flavor and creativity in it, because not a lot of other contestants did a dessert, and I like creativity, so that was a good thing. So since only top 3 were chosen to go up, I was with Addison and JJ, and it's super stressful. I didn't know who was going to win. It was really close, but luckily, in the end, I ended up winning the challenge. Advantage in the next stage of the competition, so I didn't have to cook in that next stage, and I also got to throw fish at people. And also in some other episodes, I made some other dishes that I'm pretty proud of. I made surf and turf, which was bourbon lobster and filet mignon. We also did some pretty fun challenges like a blindfolded taste test, That one was one of my favorites. We also did the Carnival Challenge, where we had to cook for 50 girls and boys for their birthday. And I also was the team captain in the BIG Challenge, where we had to do a full restaurant service for 32 people, I think it was. And it was really awesome. I got all of this new skills from judges, not only cooking, but in life. I experienced things that I never would have experienced here in Yorktown. I learned so many things, and most importantly, I made a lot of great friends there, and they lasted me until now. I talk to them almost every day. Yeah, so right when I got home from school today, I made some lemon ricotta cookies that I'm going to give as a memento.
I didn't see the show, but as soon as you said ricotta, you got my attention.
Beautiful. She must have butter and flour in her house. I would never think to fill them.
So that concludes our good news for today. Thank you for allowing us to share our good that's happening at our school, and thank you again.
Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you all for coming out. We appreciate it. And I apologize for the sound right now. Go ahead, Ralph, you can do it anyway.
So, thank you very, very much, everybody, and I guess there's just a few things that I want to say. So, Mrs. Ritchie, I'll start with you. I know I should probably start the opposite way, probably with Katie, but I'm going to start with you. So, when you said you were going to expand along with Mr. Di Pasquale into perhaps Italian and French, I think it's a great idea. However, I was also going to take it in a different direction, and that was maybe you want the students to also look at, although food is certainly the key to my heart, you might want to let them look at how music influenced American culture from Latin America and South America, and conversely, music from America to Latin America and South America, and also perhaps literature. You know, there are words that we use that are often adopted from other countries. So what are some of the words that, although their origin may be Spanish, we use them as though they are American words, and conversely, they're using some American words that really are not unique to them. So I think that might be another way to go. And dance, along with food, dance is also another key to my heart. So any way of... I will certainly be there. I will be there. As a matter of fact, without trying to date myself, and I'm going to date myself because nobody in the audience is going to know what I'm talking about. When I was young and thin, I was a hustle that's going to sound like I committed a crime. Let me just make sure I spell. The hustle was imported from South America, H-U-S-T-L-E, do the hustle. And I did it everywhere. I was a hustle champion, so you just let me know when any of you want lessons. I wouldn't even charge. And so I think that was really wonderful. I also, please convey to Mrs. Gibney and to Mrs. Clunchy how impressed I was at the Shark Tank. Teaching the kids to be entrepreneurs is a very, very useful and creative thing. And who knows, maybe we'll have future Shark Tank people here, just as we have a young chef. And from now on, when I need my papers stapled, I know where to come. That's the way I want to do it. It's just, it captured my heart, especially if you feed me. Use this mic. How's this mic?
Much better.
Oh, better.
Much better, yeah.
And then I guess, where did Katie disappear to?
Right there.
Oh, so Katie, the only word that I really heard was regatta. As soon as you said regatta, I was like, I'm into these cookies. And so I can't wait to go home and share these with the family, and we'll be back in touch, I'm sure. I have to tell you how you got here. One day I was having a very important meeting with your principal, Mrs. Horowitz, when all of a sudden the meeting was interrupted, and I hope she remembers this, by Mrs. O'Connell. Mrs. O'Connell comes rushing into Mrs. Horowitz's office. I thought something happened in the school. And she said, I just met the chef, the master chef junior. And I was like, what's she talking about? And it was all about you. So she went on with, she was so excited and she wasn't going to wash her hand. And it was all kinds of drama. I was relieved, happily I was relieved, because it was about you and not about some crisis. So that was a very, very good thing. Then when one of our Board of Education trustees, Mrs. Montero, heard about it, she said we have to have her at a board meeting so that we could walk her through this journey. I saw your journey ended the way it began. You were right back in Yorktown again. That was in Yorktown, was it? Was it New York City? Where was that journey?
LA.
Oh my, it looked like Yorktown to me, okay. I've never been to LA. But anyway, I think it's fascinating that you were there. I'm so proud that you've done so well. And I just want to convey to you something that your mother told me. She said she'll never be a stage mom. So this may not be a career choice. You may have to look at accounting or some other kind of thing. She said that was really kind of a harried experience for her. But we love having your cookies. Mrs. Ritchie, this wasn't identified.
Sorry they weren't homemade. She got me on that one.
Oh, you mean these are
Plantain, they're plantain chips. Plantain.
The board didn't hear that.
The BOE section in the supermarket.
Very nice, very nice.
Well, there you go. And I was really anxious to have the guacamole. So the guacamole's coming. Okay. Very good. So I think the reason why the mics aren't working is because we're so excited about having the middle school here that it just probably sent shockwaves throughout the cafeteria, and that's probably why the mics aren't working. And we are all looking forward to your play this weekend.
Yep.
And is it Aladdin Jr.?
Mm-hmm.
So we're hoping that you'll all be flying around on a magic carpet, and we're going to have a great time watching you. So parents, thank you very much. I know how difficult it is after coming home from a long day of work, getting your kids out, and we really appreciate it. We love them, and we like what they do. Thank you very much, Ms. Schiavo, for doing this for us. Mrs. Schiano, forgive me. I decided to make you a parent. We have a Schiavo family. Schiano. And thank you also for including how the different units that you're following up with the children relate to the superintendent's action plan and to the board goals. We always feel very good when we know that's happening in the school. And we love to see these interdisciplinary lessons and these STEAM units. They're really amazing. And I'm going to enjoy these all the way home. And maybe I'll save one for my wife. But it was the ricotta that really, that was the secret to my heart. If you would have said, I was afraid you were going to say cream cheese. But somehow when you said ricotta, it made it all better, all better. So thank you all very much for being here. We're going to take a minute for you to go, and we're going to go on with the board meeting. Thank you. building anticipated that if that would all go through, I'm not sure at this juncture if they've really even converted the zoning. They may have done that. So however long that takes and whatever they anticipate generating enrollments was, that may be something that we would have to think about. But again, our first thing would be we would think about the schools that we have operating and how we may be able to do something creatively within our buildings. So we would start there, I would think, and then as time passed, depending upon how much the enrollment increased, we might try to figure out something different. So right now, we feel very safe, exactly as we are.
Okay. Anybody else wishing to speak? Agenda-related items, Mr. Stefan?
Okay, turn your mics on.
Turn your mic on.
Turn them on?
He's asking us to turn them on.
Okay.
We're speaking.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
Okay.
Hi, Ed.
Welcome back, Ed. Nothing's really changed. You still can't hear it on TV and stuff. So,
Now you can't hear it live either.
I came here tonight because it was double digits, but I didn't know it was 0.26, the increase. I thought maybe like 26% at one time. But it looks pretty good. I said I'm going to stay late and make sure that I needed to find out what's going on. And the superintendent is right. They're building everywhere. And what they're building is next to Costco. Talk about the zoning. They changed the zoning from 80 units, now they want 121 units. Then down at BJ's, across the street, that's Roundhouse Crossing, that's 26. Then opposite the highway garage is Underhill Crossings, that's 60. So you're starting to get over 100. And there's another person who wants 12 units of housing. So I never see you at meetings, but maybe you should have the liaison go up there and just say how it's going to affect the school district. Because it's really will. And I think every 20 kids, maybe a new teacher, just to be out there, what it is now. But listen, it's great to see you guys. I hope everything's working well. And according to this, it's the first time I see it. It looks pretty good, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Just so that you know, Ed, we have been in touch with Supervisor Grace. We have asked him to keep us, appraised of all the things that are happening. Some of the numbers that you're giving are staggering. I've not heard those numbers, 121, that I've not heard. But we have visited Mr. Cole, myself, and Mr. Donatelli, and Mr. D'Alessandro was not here this evening, and we have asked to be kept appraised of this because, as you know, it would be very important for us to be prepared.
That's a lot. And the town gets benefited by it. They go bride and negotiations.
Thank you, Ed. We are up to our superintendent's presentation now.
Thanks.
You have the mic.
It's all about the mic.
So thank you, everybody, for giving me the opportunity to present the budget. As you know, over the past at least 5 budget meetings, we've had a portion of the budget presented by Tom. And as always, he does an outstanding job making sure that everybody understands each element of the budget and how it ends up being at this point in time. So that photograph is beautiful. I love looking at our buildings and seeing how well and beautifully they're maintained, both on the inside and the outside. So then if you would just go to the next slide. This is one that Tom has shared with you at every single presentation that he gave. And again, the reason why we stress this so much is because we want the community to understand that this has been and will always be our goal, and that is to educate the whole child. Again, while we feel it is most important that students are prepared academically to meet the rigors of college and, of course, the field of work, we also know in our hearts that just being smart is not sufficient in today's day and age. You have to have social and emotional skills and a good character, and you certainly should be proficient in the arts, as we've seen many times with our own students coming to board meetings, and physical fitness and taking good care of your health and your body. So again, if you're going to prepare the whole child, as we do, we want to make sure that we're communicating that, because this is always going to be our goal. We also would like to reiterate our mission statement. So if you go to the next slide, thanks. As you know, we've used this motto, so to say, for a number of years now: come to learn, lead, and serve. We do believe that our students do come to school to learn, and they do leave our buildings ready to serve and ready to lead. We are committed to the core beliefs, and again, we review them often with our faculty, with our staff, and with our students, so that the one understanding that we want them to be clear of is by the time they conclude their journey, that they're competent and capable and caring citizens who are willing and able to make a difference in the world. In order to educate the whole child, we created this little graphic for you to look at. So academically, to provide the academic education that our students receive here, we do have 300 teachers, we have 100 CTAs, and we have 15 TAs who contribute to the academic program. As far as the social and emotional development of the students go, we have 5 social workers, 8 psychologists, we have 2 substance abuse counselors, 10 guidance counselors, 2 SROs, and 1 DARE officer. In performing arts, the board is very well aware of the fact that we have opportunities for our students to participate in band, chorus, orchestra, drama. You heard that the middle school play is coming up. They're going to do the musical Aladdin. For those of you who are lucky enough to see the high school performance of Damn Yankees, you know that our students are multi-talented and they do a wonderful job. Fine arts, the students start in kindergarten and continue all the way through the 12th grade. We're the beneficiaries of their beautiful work in the district office. One art teacher every month comes in with wonderful projects and drawings and pieces from their children that are placed around the office, and they're there for us to admire every day and for our guests when they come in. Health and safety, we have 8 nurses, we have 7 security monitors, 5 greeters, 1 athletic trainer. As far as school athletics go, we have 60 teams and 67 coaches. We have 75 clubs between the middle school and high school. And character education, we have a K-12 PBIS program. And as the board knows, we had a national site visit probably about 2 weeks ago at this point in time. And the visitor was quite impressed. Whether or not we received the accolade, that I'm not sure of. It was a big honor for us to be recognized as a New York State district of character. Whether we get to be a national district of character, I wouldn't turn it away, but it's just a pleasure to go through the buildings with a guest and watch what that person sees, because it's what you see every day, but to them it's something very special. To us, it's just the way we live, and I think that our guest was very impressed, and we were very impressed with her. She was very witty, she was very engaging, and she spent a long day here taking copious notes. So we'll let you know when she makes a decision. The budget development, which is something that you've seen many times at the triangle on the next slide. It begins in October when the administrators receive their budget package, and they're very quick to comply with Tom's directive of getting it back ASAP, and they do that. And then starting in November and all the way through January, we have many meetings to determine what the budget is really going to look like and where we're going to give attention in this particular school year. From January to April, there's public presentations, and as I said, I do believe that there are at least 5 presentations that Tom gave up to this point in time. Tonight is my presentation, and then with a relief that I'm happy to do this, I turn this budget over to you And then on the 18th, you have the opportunity to adopt the budget or to tweak it as you see fit. How the money is spent, it's one of my favorite pie graphs only because it really demonstrates how we use the money. So as you know, we're a service organization. 52% of the money that is in the budget goes towards salaries. 20% goes to employee benefits. So almost about 3/4 of the budget is spent on that amount of people and the positions that they have here. Contractually, we spend 18%, and that's usually on contracts like transportation, BOCES, things of that nature. Equipment is low, it's a 1% budget, but we do spend it. Materials and supplies are 1%, and then principal and interest, 5%, that's on borrowing, capital projects, things of that nature. And interfund transfers, on occasion we have to transfer money from one account to another when we're doing capital projects, and also for our summer programs that occur every summer with reading, special education, and on occasion we call it ENL, right? English as a new language is the new term, so we've gone from ESL to ELL to ENL. Where the money is spent, so again, what we're always proud of, and Tom always brings into our attention, the largest percentage of money, if you're thinking of it as a dollar, 56.6% of the dollar is spent in the classroom on the students, and we're very pleased with that. 6% of the budget is spent on transportation. 27.79 is spent undistributed. That would be employee benefits, debt service, and then a 9% is on general support. That would be anything from the Board of Education to central office, to legal expenses, to liability, to facility costs. So again, as it comes in, it does go out. And this was, the next chart is the one I was explaining to Mrs. Bowes when she came up and asked a question about French Hill. So if you notice, all the way back in 2005, there were probably about 4,200 students, 4,223 to be exact. We're anticipating opening the new school year in, I guess, 16 with 3,464 students. Now, students will be enrolled over the summer, so we do anticipate that that will go up slightly, but right at this juncture, that's what we're thinking. And if you go up, there's a bubble that kind of shows where French Hill was idled, and at that time, there were 3,900 students in the district, and we don't anticipate more than 3,400 as we open in the new school year. So you can see that it's not changed much at all that would warrant any consideration at this point in time. As far as the student-teacher ratio goes, we're very proud of that student-teacher ratio. In fact, when you think of the number of teachers in a building, now again, we're talking here about AIS teachers, reading teachers, music teachers, art teachers, classroom teachers, enrichment teachers. The ratio is pretty much about 12 to 1. In some circumstances, a little bit less, 10 to 1, 11 to 1, so we're very pleased. We didn't include CTAs, nurses, psychologists, social workers, or guidance counselors, because they're not always consistently interacting with the students, but the teachers are always interacting with the students. So we feel very good about the number, we feel very confident, and we know that our students are getting a phenomenal education here. Factors that influence our budget are pretty consistent. I don't think there's anything that we changed here. We may have removed one or two things, but the tax cap, again, that's something that we live with, it's in place, and we had taken precaution before they even put it in place to make sure that we maintained the budget that was acceptable to the taxpayer. State and federal mandates, unfortunately, they do continue. The state and federal government are pretty determined to get what they want when they want it, and there's nothing wrong with that, except that it's costly and they don't want to pay for it. So I think that when it comes to those mandates, it's something that we do follow, we never miss, but they're expensive and you have to do them. Tax certiorari's, again, over the years, as Tom has pointed out, we have created a fund. We've always almost used the fund because people are able to state that their taxes that perhaps they're paying are not in sync with what their property is valued at or worth. So that continues to be a challenge. The gap elimination adjustment. I actually have a letter, so I did say this to the board in executive session, and I have the opportunity to say it to the community on TV, even though Mr. Sifone assures me that the voice doesn't work. The gap elimination adjustment, as you know, probably about 5 years ago, perhaps 6, and I do think it was 5, the governor, because the state seemed to be lacking funds, the governor decided that each school district would give up some of its funding in order to make that gap go away, make the state's gap go away, make the state whole. Over the course of the 5 years, we've probably given up about $11 million in state aid. At this juncture, the legislature and the Senate have kind of said to the governor, GEA has to go away. We want that to go away. Now, he's not there yet. They have made a minimal modification. So this year, we would have lost perhaps maybe a little bit over $1 million with the, would you agree with that, Tom? Maybe a little bit over $1 million because of the GEA. And we're probably only going to lose about $700 and some odd thousand dollars. We did get an additional $200 and some odd dollars based upon that adjusting of the gap elimination. However, what the Senate and the legislature are hoping to do is eliminate it completely. And what I've asked the community, I put a letter on the website, and I'm asking the community to read the letter. If they're in agreement with it and feel they can support it, all they need to do is put in their email address and launch it, and it will go to our legislators, just to remind them that this is something that's significant and important to us. APPR expenses over the years, you know that they are very high. This all got started with the race to the top. And you will all recall, the board recalls that again, because the state was in trouble financially, the governor accepted from the Obama administration a significant amount of money. Perhaps I think it was somewhere in the area of $700 million or more. I really should have had that number fresh in my mind. We got very little of that. That was distributed around the state. We probably got about $28,000 from that great deal. And it's cost us a lot of money because, again, there were a lot of mandates that go along with APPR. So, and that's not something they're going to step away from. I do believe in my heart of hearts that it does help the state's finances to collect that money. It doesn't necessarily help us, but it does help the state. But it does create a big expense for us. So somebody else may be benefiting, but it certainly isn't Yorktown. And then something else that would factor into our budget, influencing our budget expenses, is change in enrollment. If the enrollment goes down, of course, we wouldn't hire new employees. If the enrollment goes up, as Mrs. Sifone pointed out, if there were an additional 20 students that were coming in on a grade level. I mean, again, if they were partitioned across the 13 grades from K to 12, it's not going to hurt us. But if it was 20 kids on the kindergarten level, it would. We'd have to add a teacher, and the cost of that would certainly affect our budget. And I guess this is the news that after you go through 10 or 11 slides, people kind of say, gee, this is really all we wanted to hear. So we're always happy to say that the budget-to-budget increase is 0.11%, and the estimated tax rate increase is 0.26%. So I think no one would dispute the fact that, you know, we certainly kept to the cap, and we have certainly made sure that the tax rate increase is very minimal. And then I guess the last thing is just a calendar. On April 18th, the board will make a final determination. Yeah, thanks, Tom, for that little reminder. And perhaps adopt the budget. On May 17th, the community will vote on the budget, and that voting will take place at Mohansick School, as it always has, and it would be from 7 o'clock in the morning to 9. And then I think we just have a nice photograph at the end, and I guess we're trying to capture again all the things that we do with the students that make this such a great place to be, and I mean that so sincerely. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. Thanks.
We've been over this budget many times, but does anybody have questions they want to ask now that we see it as a whole? Because we have this meeting, we have the next meeting, and then we have the adoption, so there's time
piggybacking a little bit off of Mr. Simone, just so that people know a little bit about how we forecast for enrollment. One of the things we try to look at is any type of new housing. How else do we look sort of down the pike, and how do we forecast? I know enrollment has gone significantly down over the past 5 or so years. What other types of things do we look at when we forecast for enrollment year over year?
Thank you.
There we go.
We look at historical trends, number one. We have a database of enrollment that goes back about 12 years, and so we look at statistical trends based on that. But a couple of years ago, we also commissioned a demographic study to confirm what we had, or to enlighten us as to what we might expect. That demographic study, performed by Dr. Paul Swiderski, indicated to us where he expected enrollment to go. It was very much in line with what we had expected based on our statistical models. So we have a high level of confidence that the path we're on in terms of projections is a sound one.
The only thing, of course, that we weren't, when we had the demographic study done, we weren't aware that there would be, a variety of new sites identified as potential places to build. So we are keeping an eye on that. But again, one of the things that we're also very, very aware of is that we can do certainly some things internally with, moving students from one place to another. That would serve us well before we, again, have to really worry. But I think Mrs. Simone's point was well taken. This would be where the town would be very, very helpful to us because it's our job to educate students. We don't fear that. We thrive on that. That's what we do. But we need to know who's coming in order to, present the higher education that students have been accustomed to over the years. And if that quality is, kind of in jeopardy if we don't know who's going to be in front of us. So that would be the only thing, is the communication with the town that's so important.
It is, okay. So keeping with the same theme, when we talk about contingency positions, can we speak to what we've allowed for and what we're expecting for enrollment this fall?
We have a total of 6 contingent teaching positions in the budget for projected enrollment, 3 of them in special education. And we believe that some of them will absolutely be used based on the requirements of special education class configurations. But we have 3 additional regular education teachers based on whatever enrollment might creep up on us. We are seeing a slight increase in the last 2 years from the K-5 levels in enrollment, even though overall enrollment is going down. So what we've seen, if we hire all 6 new teachers that are in the budget next year, we will have hired 15 new teachers in the last 3 years between the implementation of full-day kindergarten and increases in enrollment where we tried to modify and mitigate impacts to class sizes last year.
Or just plain reductions.
Or just plain reductions in some case to be able to have more manageable classes for our teachers. So all of those positions are in there. Plus, we have 3 administrative positions in the budget to finally have assistant principals in the K-5 schools. That's a function of the increase in enrollment, number of sections, number one, but also because of the mandates of the aforementioned APPR requirements for all kinds of observations and evaluations that need to be done on an annual basis there.
But just to point out to the public, the reason why that's partially necessary as well is because it's very limited as to who can do these evaluations. And you have to have certain requirements, and that would be also the purpose of the assistant principals, right?
That's right.
Thank you.
At this juncture, we've had to, invite outside evaluators in because there's no keeping up with it. Again, if you just look at 300 here, and we'll just talk about the 300 teachers, it doesn't mean that everybody else in the district isn't invited, but if you just invited, they're invited to evaluate, but the 300 teachers are evaluated twice. So you're talking about 600 observations yearly, plus an end of the year report, and then there's 100. And the only ones that can do it are administrators who have been trained as lead evaluators. As a matter of fact, we have to have training every year in order to, be recertified. Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's another unfunded mandate. And the point that Tom was making for the increase in the number of hires, one, he said very clearly and articulated well, we went to full day kindergarten, which was very important to the district and to our K-12, philosophy of education. And then the other one was we were trying to reduce some of the class sizes as they had grown with some increased enrollment, and we didn't want to continue with that and say that was okay with us. So that was the reason for some of the other hires.
Just to clarify a little, not only do we invite them, but we actually have to pay them a handsome wage in order for them to do that work.
Oh yeah, they're invited.
We're trying to offset a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
One of the other pieces, though, the assistant principals aren't just to evaluate. There's a lot of management of a building that kind of is being foregone because of the amount of time principals are spending doing some of this unfunded mandates, and we can't lose track of the students in the building.
Right. In days gone by when the world was a calmer place and life was a little bit more stable, maybe elementary school principals, although they would have always had challenges because everything was left to their plate, as their worlds have become more complex and more complicated, any one of them would tell you that a crisis, and I'll just put that in quotes, could take them away from their major role as instructional leader in the building for several days and sometimes up to a week as they investigate and try to bring things to closure. So at this point in time, it's not manageable anymore. The only reason it's ever been manageable here is because we have great principals, and that's just the truth. Had we had people who did not have the skill set and did not have the time commitment that our principals had, we would have been asking for this years ago. But I think we would all agree that at this juncture, it would be impossible for the schools to be run.
Would you mention DASA?
Yeah, well, that's good.
Sure.
No, please.
Yeah. Another big factor is managing the Dignity for All Students Act, federal legislation that's implemented at the state level, and that has really consumed, over these past couple of years, 2 years in particular, consumed an amazing amount of time for our principals. So, and the data management is another big item. So that it's become, education is a wonderful field, but it's become very complex, very detailed, and much higher levels of accountability, and that's really where we see a greater need.
And again, if you want the principals doing the main job, I said it and I want to say it again, their major function is instructional leadership. There has to be somebody else who's really going to be able to manage the building while they're doing all of the other things to prepare faculty for all of the challenges of being teachers in the 21st century. It's a challenge. So education has always been a challenge. It's never been more of a challenge than it is now.
Any other questions? Christine, do you have questions? Yes. I'm going to turn this off.
I'm going to piggyback again on Karen.
Wait, did we turn this off?
And Mr. Savone, I know that you spoke about budgeting for additional positions that we may need in the near future, especially in the special ed department. And now that IEPs and that whole process of annual reviews is taking place, and probably in this district almost over, but not everywhere. Yorktown is very unique in a great way. But positions that you may not anticipate for, that staff go out on maternity leaves or a variety of family medical leaves, how do we, is there any indication? Do we supplement? Do we have another budget, or is it in the contingency budget? If you can just, expand on that. There's no way of really knowing what happens in someone's life.
Sure. We quantify everything that we know up to the point that we're creating the budget. So, for instance, there are a number of staff members who have announced their retirement, as is required within their contracts. And we've quantified that by removing their salaries for next year and replacing them with an assumed cost of a new hire. So for us, our budget will save approximately $275,000 to $375,000 just on those retirements, because those people who retire at the highest end of the salary spectrum will be replaced by people lower on the salary spectrum. Also, those who have declared that they're going to be on leaves of absence, we do that similarly. We remove their salaries for the year or for the time period they'll be out and replace them with an assumed replacement cost. So in that sense, the quantifying those elements actually help to either keep the budget stable or reduce the budget. And that's how we're able to afford some of the things we're doing in terms of contingency planning, because of these elements that are not necessarily a function of how we manage, but a function of what employees are doing in any one particular year.
Thank you.
Tom, I have a question.
Is yours off?
Yes,
Okay.
mine's off.
Mine's on. Can you hear me? Okay. This is terrible. As we near the end of our bonded project, which, will be finished either this summer or next summer, depending on how we do with the work, we've decided to start to invest in capital projects on a cash basis to save us money. What have we included for those types of projects this year?
We have a budget similar to what we included last year, which is $450,000. With last year's budgeted money, we're doing the tennis court renovations this summer, and the work on the electrical system that goes out to the athletic fields, currently underway. As a matter of fact, it just started. The trenching for that started. We've identified 2 more projects for next year that can be done with the $450,000 in the budget, and we'll do that similarly. We experienced quite a bit of savings. You may remember, I know you remember, but the public may remember when we did the capital projects for the BOCES piece up here, which was about $1.2 million over 3 years. We used cash reserves to do that, saving tens of thousands of dollars in interest expense. So to the extent we can do these smaller level capital projects with cash reserves as opposed to borrowing money, we're saving significant amounts of money to the taxpayers. And that's something we'll be able to do again next year with these monies.
Terrific. Any other questions? Okay. So the next step will be, I guess we will discuss it again if there's any other questions further at the next board meeting, and then on the 18th, we'll have the full adoption of the budget. Okay. Awesome. Again, I want to thank the administration and all of the administrators in the audience tonight. You guys have worked really hard on this, and we really appreciate all your time and effort in putting this together for the whole community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, you want? Yeah, go ahead.
So I think, ladies and gentlemen, you can go home unless you have a question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, yeah. Thank you. You've gotten permission, go. All right. We are up to our pupil personnel services reports. That's our education report?
Education report.
Okay.
Turn that mic off.
Yes.
Okay. She probably will, and then I'll hand her a mic, so that'll be good. Good evening, once again. It's my pleasure to introduce Lisa O'Shea, our Director of Pupil Personnel Services, who will be sharing an update from the Pupil Personnel Department. This report reflects 2 of our education goals that are contained under the Pupil Personnel Services section of the Superintendent's Action Plan. The first goal being to continue to implement and evaluate special education programs along the continuum of services with a focus on least restrictive environment. And the second goal, to develop a 3-year action plan for the department. So I'd like to welcome Lisa O'Shea, and I know Mike Rosen is here as well, the Assistant Director for PPS, so welcome.
Thank you, Dr. O'Connor. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to give you some current information on special education in Yorktown schools. Also, we'll be sharing some information regarding our action plan moving forward over the next several years. As you know, the PPS department works in close collaboration with Dr. O'Connor, the curriculum department, as well as the building administration. Everything that we do connects across all levels of administration. The first few slides that you will see in this presentation will be familiar to you from the budget presentation, but I wanted to include them again for the purposes of background. School-age students are eligible for special education services if the Committee on Special Education determines that due to a mental, physical, or emotional reasons, the student has a disability which meets at least one of these 13 categories. This chart reflects the number of students that we had in October, during the October snapshot date. We do this as October just to reflect consistent trends across from year to year. But just to show you the difference between where we are from October to now, currently we have 64 preschool students with disabilities. Our total school-age students with disabilities is 556, of which 42 are placed out of district. In keeping with the regulations of New York State, the PPS department is also required to provide special education services to students who attend private schools within the Yorktown Central School District boundaries for school-age students, regardless of whether or not those students reside in Yorktown. Our district of location responsibilities include 6 private schools, and we are responsible for all aspects of child find, evaluation, and the development and implementation of services. The PPS department also oversees Section 504 plans. Regulations under Section 504 define disability differently than the 13 categories specified in IDEA for special education. Students determined to have a mental or physical disorder substantially limiting a major life function, but who are not eligible or do not warrant special education services may be eligible for protection and accommodations under a Section 504 plan. And currently we have 81 students district-wide with active Section 504 plans. This slide talks about the continuum of services provided to students with disabilities at Yorktown schools. We utilize a variety of combinations of special education supports and services to serve students with disabilities in both general ed settings and special education settings. This slide shows the continuum of services from least to most restrictive and refers to the places and location where services will be provided. The Special Education District Plan. I know that the board has been given a copy of the updated Special Education District Plan. Of course, you'll have an opportunity to review it over the next several weeks, and then perhaps at some point you will hopefully be able to have the board adopt the new revised plan. Part 200.2 of the state regulations require that boards adopt the district plan. The state advises that district plans should be kept current and be reviewed periodically by the Board of Education. The last time this plan was revised, reviewed, and adopted by the board was in the 2013-14 school year. By regulation, the plan includes, but is not limited to, district practices and procedures for assuring appropriate educational services for students with disabilities, a description of the special ed services provided to students in the district, identification of the number and age span of preschool and school-age students receiving special education by type of disability and recommended program setting. And it also includes an estimated budget to support special education programs and services. In addition to updating the Special Education District Plan, we have created a 3-year action plan that about 6 years ago, when Mike and I started working together, we talked about what we needed to do for special education, and at that point, 6 years ago, we relied on a report that was done by an outside organization on the status of special education in Yorktown schools. In the 6 years since then, we've really worked towards making changes that were recommended in that plan, and I feel like we've come a long way from that, but we needed to now structure our work moving forward. And it just so happened that this year, the State Ed Department came out with a document called Blueprint for Improved Results for Students with Disabilities. This document identified 7 core principles within the document that have structured our work for moving forward. We took this blueprint and we shared it with the PPS staff in each building. We asked for feedback from the staff using a SWOB model for each of the 7 principles. The SWOB model consists of looking at our practices related to each of the 7 principles and identifying our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and barriers. We looked to get the feedback from the buildings because Mr. Rosen and I could come up with our own determination of where we are in each of those areas. but who better than to give us some concrete information than the staff in the buildings. Also, in developing our action plan, we looked at our state performance indicators, and we focused on the 2 areas where we have not met the state target. As you will see, improvement in these areas is also included in our action plan. We are required by law to report 20 state performance indicators related to special ed over a 6-year cycle. Out of the 20, most recently we have 2 that we have not met the state standards, so we have included that in our work. This plan will guide our work through 2018. It is a fluid document that we will revisit frequently. Our next step is to review it with the building administrators to discuss items specific to each building and the expected timeline feasibility. I'd just like the building administrators' feedback on, am I realistic in thinking these are the things we can accomplish over this time frame? So now I'd just like to share with you what those 7 principles are that are guiding our work and some goals under each principle. Students engage in self-advocacy and are involved in determining their own educational goals and plans. The first goal under this principle is to have secondary age students be able to articulate their strengths and needs and to set clear goals and advocate effectively for themselves. We see this happening through the CSE process. We do have good student attendance at CSE meetings at Yorktown High School, but we need to make that student participation more meaningful. We plan to establish a study group with key representatives from Yorktown High School to review a book called Getting the Most Out of IEPs, an educator's guide to the student-directed approach. We're going to start the study group over the summer and into the fall, and this group will be responsible for developing a plan to foster active student engagement at CSE meetings. This plan will include student workshops, parent meetings, and the development of a rating scale to be used by both students and staff to measure active student engagement at their meetings. After next year, we will repeat the process for the 7th and 8th grade students and staff at the middle school. Our second goal under this principle is to have all students with disabilities K-12 monitor their progress towards their academic and social goals with various levels of support from the teacher. We plan to do this by having meetings in each of the buildings to discuss ways to involve students at the various levels in monitoring their goals. We will look to our teachers at each grade level to assist in formalizing this process. The second principle, parents and other family members are engaged as meaningful partners in the special education process and in the education of their child. This is one of the areas where I talked about the state performance indicators and us not meeting the state target. Back in 2013-14, we had, the state had required that we have parent surveys completed where parents answered questions regarding their understanding of the CSE process and whether or not schools actively facilitated parent involvement in the process. At that point, our parent satisfaction results were 87%, and the state target is 90%. So in order to meet this and improve this target to over 90% by June of 2018, we will hold building-specific parent meetings with PPS staff to explain the CSE process to parents. We believe that doing this meeting at each building instead of district-wide will be more meaningful for parents to learn about the process, but also to meet personnel specific to their buildings. At that point, in the end of 2018, we will conduct the survey again and hope that we have increased to the 80% target. The second goal under Principle 2 is communication. Parents understand what their child is expected to know and be able to do to progress towards the state learning standards. Our special ed teachers as a whole are very good about communicating with parents and to share current levels of functioning that the child is demonstrating as well as ongoing progress. What I think we need to just make sure that we reiterate is that not only are you defining what the student's current progress is, but what are the gaps that are still evident that need to be closed in order for the student to master grade level content standards. The third principle, teachers design, provide, and assess the effectiveness of specially designed instruction to provide access for students with disabilities to participate and progress in the general education curriculum. The first goal under this is that IEPs are developed in consideration with grade level standards. To meet this, we will have turnkey training of a BOCES workshop called Development and Measurement of Effective IEP Goals. This turnkey training will take place in each building and will focus on how teachers can ensure the goals they develop for students align with the Common Core standards. The second goal is that special and general education teachers of students with disabilities will engage in intentional collaborative lesson planning to meet the needs of each individual student. Through grant monies, we will continue to support ICT teams or integrated co-teaching teams with quality ongoing professional development with the focus on differentiation and instructional strategies. We will conduct a review of the amount of meaningful co-planning time experienced by all teams K-12. If necessary, we will review building schedules to determine if changes can be made to allow for greater collaboration. Goal 3, we'll go back. Goal 3, individual student data is used to inform and design instruction for students with disabilities to progress towards grade level standards. All special education teachers are part of their building data discussions relating to student performance on assessments such as STAR, DIBELS, state exams. Our data management system for special education and special education student data is IEP Direct. This upcoming year, our special education teachers will be trained on a new progress monitoring feature on IEP Direct, which will allow them to track progress towards IEP goals in a systematic fashion and then tailor their instruction accordingly. Principle 4, teachers provide research-based instruction, teaching and learning strategies, and supports for students with disabilities. The first goal under that principle is all teachers of students with disabilities are knowledgeable and skilled in providing explicit instruction in academics and social-emotional learning. Teacher representatives from each building will attend a training on explicit instruction and turnkey this training for staff at their buildings. Special ed building department meetings will focus on this topic, as well as how to use these strategies to help our students meet the expectations of the Common Core. The second goal, evaluate and determine the feasibility of a 3-to-1 model for related services. During the fall of this year, Mike Rosen, our assistant director, and some related service personnel met with the neighboring school district that implements this type of model. The pros and cons were identified, and going into next school year, we plan to work with SEPTA to share this process with parents and gain some feedback from parents regarding this model. Principle 5, schools provide multi-tiered systems of behavioral and academic support. The first goal is educators disaggregate and analyze outcomes for students with disabilities to improve programs and outcomes. During this year, we started to work with the data department to analyze STAR assessment data, ELA and math student data for students K through 8, and to sort it by grade and special ed program type. What we're looking for, how are our students doing who are participating in an integrated co-teaching model? How are our students doing who are participating in a self-contained special class model? This information will be shared with teachers, trends will be identified, and if necessary, discussions on curriculum implementation will follow. The second goal under Principle 5 is to develop and implement a formal RTI plan to address social, emotional, and behavioral needs. As the board is aware, Dr. O'Connor has worked for many years on the implementation and the development and implementation of an RTI plan for our academic programs. That is very successful, and what we wanted to do moving forward was to align a RTI plan for social, emotional, and behavior to our existing academic plan. To this end, there's been a committee in place representing clinical team members at each building. Comprehensive training has taken place over 5 days at OCs. As we move forward, we will work with Dr. O'Connor to formalize a K-12 plan during May and June. The plan will be shared with administrators during the summer and with faculty and staff in the fall. Implementation will occur and be evaluated after 1 year. Any changes will be made at that point. The third goal under Principle 5 is to develop and implement specific strategies and programs to address students' social emotional needs. This kind of falls under Goal 2, but what we're seeing is a need to be a little bit more focused in how we provide support to students who are struggling social emotionally. So what we are doing is connecting some of our key staff to neighboring districts who have initiated programs for social emotional support over the last few years. And then we will discuss options and determine how we can structure or better structure an approach or a program of support for students struggling in that area. Principle 6, schools provide high-quality, inclusive programs and activities. This is that second state performance indicator that we were not meeting. In an effort to ensure that special education students have access to their general education peers in the least restrictive environment, the state collects data on the percentage of time students spend in the general ed setting. From the 2009 school year, at that point, we had 35% of our students participating in the general ed setting for 80% or more of the school day. That was very low compared to the rest of the state. So we've made great efforts and strides in increasing the amount of time our special ed students are spending with their general ed peers. However, we're at 53.5% now, and I'd like to see it get to 58% by June of 2018. Just to be clear, the state target is 60%. There is a great push by the state education department to move all districts beyond that, because when you look statewide at our data, for New York State, we are definitely lower than our states in the rest of the country. I just think it's really only realistic and reasonable to get to 58% in the next 2 years. We have provided our special ed teachers and their general ed partners with integrated co-teaching, an understanding of the regulations for least restrictive environment, and the models for co-teachers. We plan to broaden this group by including more general education teachers in the training with a focus on accommodations, modifications, and service delivery models. We will also identify grades and buildings with lower rates of inclusion and determine what data is being used to make those programming decisions. The final principle under which we've guided our work is that schools provide appropriate instruction for students with disabilities in career development and opportunities to participate in work-based learning. Right now, the goal for this moving forward is that a committee from Yorktown High School will complete a predictor implementation school district self-assessment to determine the degree to which we're implementing practices which are likely to lead to more positive post-school outcomes for students with disabilities. Areas of need will then be identified. So we really haven't begun with this work. We're going to start it with a self-evaluation. So that's where we currently are and where we see our needs moving forward, what areas we're going to focus on. And Mr. Rosen and I are happy to answer any questions.
I think you have to turn your microphone off.
Yeah, this is sharing.
We're modeling. Thank you very much. This is very comprehensive, so thank you. Do you want to, Karen, let's start with you, and we can pass it down around, and then we'll go to Christine. All right?
Yes. So thank you for this. I did not get an opportunity yet to read the actual whole plan. I will, every page of it, but I didn't have a chance to yet. One of the things that we always look to is the trends and what seems to be coming up in the direction that we're moving in. So in looking at that, what is the trend that we're moving in? So, you know, from our kids with some more minor issues to our kids that are more involved, our autistic population that type of thing. Shut my mouth now. And you're on.
So from my understanding of your question, are you asking broadly for different populations of special education what our goals or expectations are?
Yes. This is crazy. Really, I just want to, like, what are you thinking moving forward, right? What it looks like, what education is going to look like for our special ed population because it continues to evolve. How are you changing the programs?
When we look at the expectations for students nowadays, we've always had high expectations for students with disabilities. So the fact that we continue to move towards higher expectations is nothing new for us in special education. I think what our overall direction is for all students is throughout the K-12 plan, are we preparing them for something that is meaningful after their high school experience, whether it be for certain students, giving them the supports they need to move forward into college, would it be for some of our students to prepare them for adult services, things that we can do that are appropriate towards making them or helping them to become as independent and self-sufficient as possible. Does that answer your question? Or do you want it more general?
No, that's fine. But when we look at like the autistic population and how we are creating classes to meet their needs, what is that trend looking like?
Okay. So we are looking at the possibility of having to expand our programs for some of our students who have more significant needs. Right now we have 5 812 classes at our in all of our buildings. We're going to have to make that 6 just based on numbers and student need, which is why there are 3 positions. One of them will be to add an extra 812 class. Additionally, at our primary school, we have, Mike was very thoughtful in planning several years ago based on our preschool needs that we had students who were really more severe on the autism spectrum than we've had in the past. And we wanted to be able to provide a program for that group of students in district as opposed to sending them out, particularly because they were all clustered within a similar age group, so we were able to do that. That program's been 3 years now, 3 years at Brookside, and we now need to split that class for 4th and 5th grade next year while allowing for additional preschoolers to move up. So we will see another trend there. The programs there for autistic students are focusing not only on the academics, but what are their social emotional skills that they need to be able to participate as students in school. And the high school class is the other one that we'll be adding. What we're doing for next year is we've always had a life skills class and a life skills class in the high school. What we want to do is structure it more specifically to our 14 and 15-year-olds versus our 16 to 20 and 1-year-olds. So we will have 2 separate classes with 2 separate focuses. On the 14 and 15-year-olds will be on functional academics, social development, and then when they hit 16, more about the community internships.
The only thing, it's not going to be so much on tape. One thing that's really, I shouldn't say the one thing, another thing that's really great that we do is that we allow like the Big Buddy program in the younger grades, and I've still met so many kids that have participated in that it really just promotes inclusiveness, and that is not being done in a lot of other districts. So I really want to applaud you guys for encouraging that and keeping that going from year to year, because it's a wonderful opportunity to have disabled kids with their typical peers.
Thank you. That's a great program that was started many years ago by our social workers called Circle of Friends, and it has done so many wonderful things with giving opportunities for our students in the special classes to build friendships and maintain friendships with students outside of their classes. So it's been really enjoyable.
That's great. Thanks. Just shut yours off.
Sorry.
Good. I think one of the last principals talked about work-based learning, and maybe you can elaborate on what some of those opportunities look like for our students?
Did you shut yours off?
So,
I'm off.
I think I might have touched on the part earlier in the presentation that we really need our students to be active in their planning during the CSE and IEP process. One of those reasons is that they can clearly be involved in articulating what their goals and dreams are for after high school. Some of our students will support them to meet the requirements for a diploma and they will move on to college. Others will be interested in a trade. We're lucky in Yorktown that we are in the same town as the local BOCES, which provides an array of tech programs, vocational programs for our students over 3 separate sessions throughout the day. So some of our students, general ed and special ed, will participate in whether it be culinary, veterinary sciences, fashion design, construction, technology, all kinds of programs there. Also, what we do in district is to provide internship opportunities for some of our students in local businesses for 2 hours a week doing a variety of different tasks. This year, we also have a group of students who are participating in a class towards their CDOS or Career Development Occupational Studies credential, and that class is geared towards teaching students social skills in the work setting. So those are the things that we've been doing towards that. I think that self-assessment we do will help us to pinpoint other areas that perhaps we can be a little bit more creative. So for example, our students who cannot find the time for a 2.5-hour period at BOCES, is there something we can structure within their school day that'll take 1 period that they can work on work readiness skills?
Hi. Principle 4 talks about a 3-to-1 model for related services. Can you just tell us a little bit more about what that means? Oops, hold on. I'm off.
I'm sorry.
I'm out.
One of the things we're looking at is trying to get our therapists, especially speech and language therapists, more time in the classroom. So the the 3-to-1 protocol really allows for therapists to see students for 3 weeks out of the month. In a typical pulling them out, groups of 2, 3, 4, 5 students, individual therapy. But that 4th week of the month, they will spend in the classrooms, being able to generalize the skills that they're doing in therapy in the classrooms, working with the teachers, working on ELA lessons, really taking those skills from therapy and seeing it really come to life in a classroom. We're seeing that implemented into neighboring school districts, really looking at speech, OT, those are the two. We're really kind of focused on speech to start. We're really looking at rolling it out in a lot of conversations with our SEPTA next year, and look at implementing it for the 2017-2018 school year.
That's
We
awesome.
want to make sure everybody's on board. One of the things we were looking at this year was, as we got closer to saying this is what we wanted to do, it became next week is annual reviews, and we really didn't want to talk to parents that with no notice and say this is what we're looking to do. So we really wanted to plan it next year, have a really thoughtful, have conversations with staff to make sure that week is utilized the way we want it to be, because we know what can happen. Evaluations are done, other parent meetings take place. We really want those therapists to be in the classrooms.
Good, thank you.
That sounds great. Cheryl?
You spoke about the difference in the process, well, you spoke about the process for the special education process in preschool students and school-age students. Is there a difference in the process of both of them?
Yes. For the preschoolers, and Lisa shared with you, for the school-age students, the 13 classifications. For preschoolers, our preschoolers are all classified as preschool students with a disability. We really work with Westchester County. They are the site that really provides all the evaluations to different agencies and providers. So the Yorktown School District psychologists, special ed teachers are not part of those evaluations. We're also kind of the middle ground. We have students who will transition from early intervention, which is also through the county, from birth to 3. We will provide services for children 3 to 5. Then we also will transition our full students to kindergarten. So for a student who might have started those services as a preschool student with a disability when they're 3, they may have been in early intervention from the time they're 1 or 2 years old, so sometimes they have 3 transitions. So we do a lot of work with Westchester County to get them to us. And then we're also doing a lot of work starting in January of every school year, where district staff will go out and observe our incoming kindergartners, and that really helps us generate the programs. The eligibility requirement is also a little bit different. There's usually about a year delay for a preschooler to be eligible, with a lot more stringent criteria to one of the 13 classifications that we shared at the beginning of the presentation. And financially, I know Mr. Cole will love this part. The district really isn't financially. It's all done through our state and federal taxes, all of the preschool services. We end up finishing the year with anywhere between 90 and 100 preschoolers that will receive services from speech therapy all the way up to attending a full day, either an integrated program or a special ed program. And all that transportation that would be provided to programs is also done through the county. As much as it sounds like the county takes a big piece of it, the role of Lisa County and my secretary and I for the preschool is a lot of coordination from people who don't work here. So it's agencies for the evaluations, agencies to come to the meeting, it's early intervention, transition coordinators to come to a meeting, and then ultimately at the back end is, okay, how are the students doing and what do they need when they come to kindergarten?
Right. Is it on? Okay. You mentioned that one of the areas of focus is for all students in kindergarten through grade 12 to monitor their progress towards their academic and social goals. What does that look like? What will that look like for a kindergarten student in our district?
So how this would roll out for all of our teachers, K-12, would be the expectation that at the start of the school year, the teachers would review the specific individualized goals with their special education students. How I see this for a kindergarten student, depending on the level of the kindergartner, an academic goal could be to count to 100 by 1s and 10s. So I would see the special education teacher sitting with that student, starting off, this is where you're at, you got to number 8 today, this is where we're gonna get in another month, what do you think? Do you think you can get by Thanksgiving, can you get to 22? And to chart it in a form that would be very simple and easy for a kindergartner to understand and to read. What I think that, when I think about kindergarten, meaning our first and second grades, I don't expect that we're going to be charting progress with our kindergartners and our first graders on every single one of our IEP goals. What I see is that we will be starting the process of their involvement in their education plan, so that as they move up in the grades, they're more and more invested in what their process and what their plan should be, so that they can advocate for themselves, going back to what we talked about for secondary students' involvement in their CSE meeting.
And one more, because Anthony's not here. I just had one more for Mr. D'Alessandro, because I'm sure he would want me to do this. What are some of the changes in the new special education district plan? If you can just briefly highlight it. I know I glossed over it, but for those that may have not had the opportunity to yet, what would you say are some of the changes, or biggest changes?
So the document itself is about 150 pages, and much of it is regulated and written towards the state regulations for special education. So the first part of the document, there are some changes that reflect changes in regulations. So for example, parent membership, committee membership at special ed and preschool meetings. Prior to a couple of years ago, parent members who are other parents of students with disabilities in our district were required in attendance at a CSE meeting unless a parent of that student who was being discussed declined that support ahead of time. Now the regulation is such that if a parent of a student who we were going to be discussing at a CSE meeting wants the support of another parent member, they need to make that request and write it to us in 72 hours. So that changed the purpose of that, and how we make sure parents are aware of that. It's all included in our prescribed invitation letter to the CSE meeting, that if they'd like either a doctor or a parent member to attend, they need to let us know in 72 hours. One of the other changes that we put in that document were related to changes regarding the CDOS credential. So there's a couple of pages added there. Most of the change that you will see in the document will be in the last section, which speaks to the number of special ed students we have by disability, by program setting, the number of students we have in out-of-district programs, the list of out-of-district programs that we support, our budget, expected budget. So really that last section changes more frequently than the other sections that are based on regulation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just on the parent member piece, when parents do ask about it, one of the things I ask them is, why was a parent member ever included in the meeting? And the real answer is, back in when we started all this, the parents weren't members of the committee. So the parent member was really standing in for the parents. Now the parent is an integral part of the committee meeting, so that's ultimately why a parent member is not needed anymore. So we really have had maybe one request in the last couple of years to have another parent member come to a CSE meeting.
My question is on, am I on? Okay. There were two standards we didn't meet. The second one about inclusive programs. As we bring more and more involved kids back into the district, which is awesome that we're doing it, doesn't it make it harder to have a more inclusive program, that the numbers go up? Because just by the nature of some of the classes that you have to form, they're not inclusive classes. So doesn't that, it kind of doesn't make sense what the state wants. We're bringing the kids back in district, but we can't necessarily make them inclusive in the general ed setting. Am I incorrect in what I'm thinking?
No, you're not incorrect in what you're thinking. What we are expected to report to the state are every year the percentage of our special ed students who are spending 80% or more of their time in general ed, the percentage of students who are spending less than 40% of their time in special ed, and then the percentage of our students who are out of our schools at out-of-district programs. When I can see that we have a way to increase our inclusion within Yorktown, it's not looking at those very special prescribed classes. It's looking at the difference and the distinction between our integrated co-teaching classes and our self-contained 12-1-1 or 15-1. There's opportunities there that we could be serving some of those students who participate in those settings in more of an inclusive setting. Perhaps, if it's appropriate. So we need to make sure that we're looking at it more carefully. I think we also need to make sure that we understand what are the kids expected to learn, what are our students required to learn and to do, and how can we best facilitate that. In some cases it is with both the general ed and the special ed teacher, and in some cases it's in a smaller class. But there's lots that go into it. We've spent over the last 6 years, we've really changed the mindset of parents, teachers, even students at the older levels of, it's not scary to give up the small class. It's okay to give up. You don't always need that level of support. In some cases we do, so it's a fine balance.
I agree, but I think over the last 5-6 years, you and Mike have done a phenomenal job of creating programs that meet our students' needs, and I would rather continue that than trying to meet some state number, because I think you work really, really hard to make, you see all the programs you're putting in, you're making changes for the good of the student, and I think that's really what special ed should be about. So I don't know if I'm so worried about making 53 or 58%.
I just would like to add, one of my favorite practices that you do each year, and I always look forward to it, is when you fill the conference room wall confidentially, you can't go in there unless you're fingerprinted, with the names of all the students. You talk about their needs and you do a little bit of prediction as to what kind of classes, mainstream or general education, mainstream and general education or self-contained, that would meet their needs. So those kinds of mapping backwards practices have really strengthened the program, and I credit you both so much for that work. Thank you.
Thank you. We start that process in December. Before even the students, before even the teachers go away for the break over December, we ask them, what are you thinking for next year for your students? What are your projections? Knowing that it could change throughout the annual review cycle, but it does structure us in terms of what we need for moving forward in the budget and what we anticipate our needs will be for our students. It's a balancing act, and every time I freak out that, oh my goodness, are we going to have enough teachers? Are we going to have enough room in that class? And what do you say?
It all works out.
And it does.
I know that, speaking with you both over the years, I've said that I think that communication in the early years with the parents, taking that extra 5 minutes to make sure that they're comfortable with the process and how it works. If you invest that time then they will give you a bit more of trust, and that will carry through. So when you guys talk about making sure that parents understand what's to be expected with their child with regards to progress towards the state standards, and you said that you were going to offer workshops and that type of a thing, is that not something that we could maybe spend 5 minutes on in a meeting? And I know 5 minutes, it sounds so little, but then how many meetings you guys have in a day? But take that time right then and there to explain to that parent, this is what it means, this is what it looks like for your child. Just as it's a way to directly get in with them, and they hear you, and it's done. So because a lot of people don't go to the workshops. So that's just a suggestion, because I think that you guys have gotten better and better at communicating and making parents feel at ease. I hear it all the time, and so again, it's just a suggestion, but I think that one-on-one contact, it's worth putting the time in, because it'll make parents relax. And you check it off, done, check. But thank you guys. Wait, go.
One of the things that we have done, and we've seen a huge increase in parents coming, is the little ones. So we have seen parents, because they're the most anxious of what's going to happen when my child comes to kindergarten. So we've been meeting now, and years ago we would have 1 or 2 parents. Now we're filling the room of parents who are coming to a meeting. I'm part of it. The parent Early Childhood Direction Center is part of it.
That's awesome.
The Parent Center of Westchester is part of it. So they get a whole presentation on the guidelines of the transition from being a preschooler to being a school-age student, what the process will be from meeting to meeting, what the district is required to provide when the student comes to kindergarten. So we're trying to get them earlier, because those students will be with us most likely until they're 21 years old. And that has really helped us a lot with parents' understanding. The other ones are the ones that come up when the child comes to us later on, and they have a million of other questions which we can try to answer at a CSE meeting. They tend to be overwhelmed by all the information that comes. So sometimes when parents are with other parents, they feed off of each other and have other questions. So I think it's a balancing act between one-on-one and having them all together.
Thanks, Mike.
And Karen, just in considering what your suggestion was, I do see us moving in that direction because the work that we're going to be doing on having the special ed teachers on the committee on special ed develop goals that are directly aligned to the Common Core standards, that conversation will
Be part of it.
fly at the CSE meeting more
Sure.
fluidly because we're moving in that direction.
That's great, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Thank you very much. This
Thank
was comprehensive and important, so thank you. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Good night, guys. Run now. All right.
Pages tonight.
Question. We're up to board reports, so we're going to start with audit committee, so we'll pass this down to Tom.
Nothing to report.
Nothing to report.
Thank you.
Okay. Fiscal advisory, give it to Mike.
So, in terms of the fiscal advisory committee, one of the things that we need to discuss was the board had asked us to look into different levels of reserves. Part of this came out of the audit committee report. And so one of the things that the advisory committee would like the board to consider is potentially the creation of a capital projects or capital improvement reserve. And the rationale there is that we, over the years, have been able to do some significant projects without having to go out to bond. Tom gave an example earlier with regard to the BOCES updates that needed to be done, and we were able to accomplish that. One of the other ones was we had the opportunity at one point to set up some sort of installment program for pension contributions, and we elected not to do that. So we'd like to continue that ability and have that ability, but some of the projects that we see coming up are large, and to try to incorporate them into one budget cycle is maybe not the most prudent way to go about it. So we'd like to maybe have a discussion about the benefits, how it would work, what it would look like, so that we can go back to Tom with some guidelines or guidance on what we're looking for. I don't know if Tom wants to add anything to that.
We'll give you the mic. No, I
Oh, they got it.
They got one there.
I did consult with the bond council with regard to the capital reserve to determine what the functional framework would be like. It would be something that we'd have to put in a resolution on the ballot with the budget. And we'd have to specify the maximum amount that we would ultimately be putting into the reserve. And it would require board approval when we want to take money out to do projects with a great deal of specificity as to what the money would be used for. So the voters would have complete control over the reserve. For us, I think it does make sense, as you say, to investigate because we save a significant amount of taxpayer money by not having to pay interest on debt. And that's not a small amount. By using $1.2 million of cash reserves to do the BOCES capital projects, we estimate that we save taxpayers about $200,000 in interest expense over a 15-year period. It's not inconsequential. And as you said, some of the projects that we would look at over a period of years would be some large projects like air conditioning in schools in some kind of methodical way, things of that nature that would be significant improvements not only to the quality of life of the building, but to the ability for kids to have a better learning environment and things like that. And those are things that over a period of time, if we borrow money, would cost substantial amounts of money in interest expense. So we're ready to have a conversation. We've done our homework on it, and we're ready to do a comprehensive review.
Can we put that on the agenda for discussion for the next meeting then? Okay.
Does maybe any of the board members have any questions they want us to be prepared for?
Does anybody have any questions you want to be prepared for in advance of the meeting?
As long as we have
We
the
can think about it
discussion.
and email it, and we can email it.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
fine.
Karen, policy?
There's no update.
There's no update? Okay. And the steering committee, we are having our first construction meeting for the two projects, which is the tennis courts and the electrical line out starting tomorrow. And we are still hoping to hit the streets with the balance of the projects. And I think the way we're going to go about it for bidding it is we're going to bid it as a 2-year project, 2-summer project, because we don't believe at this late date we're going to get the materials, all the materials we need, and we don't want to have a problem with schools. So we figure if they can get it done in 1 summer, wonderful. If they can't, it's a 2-summer project, so we're paying the same price anyway. But then
Explain to everyone the reason why the delay again.
well, the reason why the delay was because SED held our plans from July until
It wasn't a lack of
March.
plans from
No,
Ryan. No, it's not.
every day you looked at it, the timeline from SED got extended, so there was nothing we could do about it.
We had our refund on time.
Yes, we did. We were ready to go. We wanted to finish this bond this year. Okay, so that's board reports. Up to board action items. Can I have a motion to accept the board minutes for the February 11th, 22nd, and 29th meetings?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Treasurer's report. A motion to accept the treasurer's report for February 2016.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to approve the extra classroom activity report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have personnel.
Mocked up.
Okay, a motion to approve upon recommendation of the superintendent that we have the certified personnel, which has got part-time appointments, a regular substitute, an amendment of appointments, other compensation, coaches and co-curriculars. We have, and a resignation, Camille Luongo, after 16 years. We have classified personnel, permanent appointment, and seasonal substitutes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ralph, did you want to say something?
So, you know, that we will, at the end of the school year, recognize the people that are retiring from the district, but we just have late word that Mrs. Luongo, one of our second grade teachers at Brookside School, will be retiring. And I don't know how many of you know Camille Luongo, but I just want to say, as with so many people who have retired over the years, who have left a void in the district because of their wonderful service, Camille will be one of those kinds of people. She's not only a phenomenal teacher, but a genuinely good human being, and I think she has done a wonderful job committing her time, her talent to Yorktown School District over the years, and she will be missed, and we will honor her and everybody else who's leaving at the end of this school year. And congratulations, Camille.
Thank you. Okay, business office. We have a refunding bond resolution. A motion to approve the refunding bond resolution of the Yorktown Central School District, New York, adopted March 28, 2016, authorizing the refunding of certain outstanding serial bonds of said district, stating the plan of refunding, appropriating an amount not to exceed $4,810,000, therefore authorizing the issuance not to exceed $4,810,000, refunding serial bonds of the district to finance the said appropriation, and making certain other determinations, all relative thereto.
So moved.
Second. Discussion.
Tom?
English, please.
Just as you would refinance your mortgage in your house when interest rates are favorable, we're doing the same here with a piece of outstanding debt, which will save taxpayers about $240,000 on a net basis over the next 8 years.
So the length left to pay on the debt is 8 years, and that's how long we're refinancing for. It's not extending the debt in any way.
That's correct.
Good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Tom. Tax cert refund. Be it resolved by order of the Supreme Court of the State of New York, held in and for the County of Westchester on the 21st day of October 2015. A tax cert refund in the amount of $90,668.93 is due to 334 Underhill LLC for the tax years 2010 through 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Tom, why is it an October date and we're getting it now?
The judgment got misplaced and we didn't receive it until March, but it was effective October 2015. By the way, this puts the current fiscal year's tax certiorari payouts to almost $400,000.
Wow. Already?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? One of these days I'm going to say no. Health and welfare. Motion to approve the contract for health and welfare services provided to resident pupils attending non-public schools in other districts. This is for the District of Rye.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? French Hill leases. Motion to approve lease amendment number 3 for the rental contract with the Yorktown Youth Soccer League for space at French Hill, and a motion to approve amendment number 4 to the rental contract with Alteris Consulting Group for a space at French Hill.
So moved.
Second. Tom, can you just explain what you're doing now with the leases, making them all end at the...
As we, this year, as the leases mature and they renew, we're going to try to standardize them to all come due on the same day, which would terminate on the 30th of June each year. So for some of them, we're going to hold their rent beyond 12 months at a stable until we reach that time period and renew it at that point.
Thank you. All right, PIPs. Wait, are you off? Okay.
I don't think we voted on it.
Oh, all those in favor?
Aye.
I oppose, sorry. Thank you, Tom. PIPs, a motion to approve the following Yorktown Congress of Teachers professional improvement proposals below, and then a motion to approve the following Yorktown Congress of Teachers CTA-TA professional improvement proposal below.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Budget transfers, motion to approve the following budget transfers.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Out-of-district placement, a motion to approve the contract between the Hawthorne Foundation and the Yorktown Central School District for the placement of 2 out-of-district students for the 15-16 school year as mandated by the IEP.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Speech and language, a motion to approve the following contract. Melanie Kahn to provide speech and language services as mandated by the IEP from March 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2016 at a rate of $150 per hour. Contract not to exceed $5,000.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A motion to approve the following contract. Anthony Corgiano to provide occupational therapy services as mandated by an IEP from March 1st to June 30th, 2016 at a rate of $90 per 30-minute session and $135 per 45-minute session or $180 per hour. Contract not to exceed $8,000.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
A motion to arrange the following special ed placements as of March 28th, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gifts, grants, and donations. A motion to accept with gratitude the following gifts, grants, and donations. Brookside, $119.91 from the GE United Way Campaign Matching Fund. $107.55 from the GE United Way Campaign Matching Fund. $231.23 from Target. Take Charge for Education. At the high school, $62.47 from Target. Take Charge for Education. $1,525 from the parents of the baseball team for costs associated with the Florida trip. $5,000 from the Huskers Club for the baseball team's associated Florida trip. $10,000 from the Huskers Club for the swim team scoreboard. For the Carol Jacobson Fund, $5,647 from Gilbert R. Johnson for the 3rd grade Carol Jacobson Fund.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much for the very generous donations. We're up to board comment.
Just let everybody nod.
Nod, yes, just pass
Cheryl?
it down.
Tom?
Nope.
Mike?
I'm okay.
No.
Christine?
I'm good.
You're good? Okay, we're, Ralph, Lawrence now? Okay, we're up to public comment. Anybody wishing to speak? Can we pass the microphone over to Mr. Stone? You got that one there. Here, I'll give it to him. May as well pass this one to Tom.
Okay, I forget this one.
I have it.
I feel like it's Phil Dunn.
45-year resident of Yorktown. And I just want you to update on the person named Dennis T. I went to visit Dennis. We used to do the recording here. Myrtle Beach. He's fine. His house is beautiful. It's a new and gated community. And he went from his taxes in Yorktown for $15,000 to $1,000. So he's happy. Looks good. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the budget. And I see police in there, and Mike over there. Now, I must have said this in 25 years. in the special education budget. There's called other school placements. And since the budget spending is going up $105,000, this has $250,000. If you take it from there, still leaves $145,000 in our replacement, and the spending would be zero. So I did my thing. It's nice to come back. You guys doing a great job. It's better than on the way. It's been the lowest in. I understand. So thank you for the budget.
That's
And you know, I say the same thing. If you get more money, that 105 is hardly anything. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Wait, we need the microphone back, Ed.
Take that microphone home.
Otherwise, the budget will go up.
Is that it? Okay. This is it. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.